Hi, welcome everyone. This is Rick Levine from the NAUMD. Welcome this afternoon. We've got Tom and Derek joining us, return engagement from Znode. Very excited about their talk today. Quick plug about the NAUMD. We've been around since 1932. We offer news to the industry. We have our annual awards program that's very popular. Check it out on the website. We offer industry data, reports to members. And best of all is network access. You can meet companies such as Znode. You can meet manufacturers, meet dealers, distributors, meet companies that are servicing the industry as associates. We network extensively throughout the year. And we offer webinars twice a month currently in 2021. And also please check out our podcast series, which we've now launched, have about 8 or 10 episodes up there for your listening pleasure, and it's available on all of the typical podcast streaming services. And I am going to stop sharing. So today's talk, shortening the sales cycle, e-commerce 2.0, and Derek and Tom from Znode, AMLA Commerce. I will turn it over to you to talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. We appreciate it, and we are going to share a presentation today, and we're actually even going to walk through. We're going to walk through some examples, some live examples of e-commerce 2.0 in the uniform industry. And before we jump into that, a couple things that we can walk through from an agenda perspective is one is housekeeping. As you know, Rick is recording this, so this will be available live after this at the NAUMD website. It will also be available live at znode.com, which we will show on the last slide of this presentation. And we'll also have the actual deck available for download on our website as well. Along the way, if you have any questions, please use the chat hangout for your questions. Derek and I are going to be co-presenting, but he'll be fielding questions. If it's appropriate, we'll handle it while we're in the middle of the webinar. If it's more appropriate to wait till the end, we'll do a Q&A at the end. And as we jump into introductions, Derek, why don't you jump in and go first?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So I am the product marketing manager at AMLA Commerce. I work primarily on the Znode e-commerce platform, largely in charge of the go-to-market strategy for the product. And as Tom said, I'll be filling in today with some color commentary based on my e-commerce practitioner experience. Thanks,
Great.
Tom.
Thanks, Derek. And my name is Tom Flurl. I'm the VP of Marketing at AMLA Commerce for both our Znode product and our Artify product, which we'll get into in a moment. And I've been in the e-commerce and product customization space pretty much on and off for about 20 years now. And so really happy to spend some time with you this afternoon and walk through what we see as the future of e-commerce in the uniform industry. We'll give a quick introduction because we're throwing around lots of different brands and names, and so we'll help clear up a little bit of confusion. AMLA Commerce is our parent company, and that's where Derek and I both work. And we have two different products that are widely adopted within the uniform industry, but also within other industries such as the promotional products industry, et cetera. A lot of crossover in functionality there. One is Artify, and Artify allows for enterprise product customization. We talk about putting a logo on an item is probably the shortest way to understand that, but it can do a lot more than that. And then Znode, which is an enterprise B2B e-commerce platform, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. However, we're going to talk more about e-commerce 2.0, so we're not going to be here pitching products. We're located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and that is our world headquarters. And then we do have many, many happy customers, and many customers actually in the uniform industry as well as in the promotional products industry. And this is actually just a small sampling. And the reason I bring up the promotional products industry, a lot of crossover with uniform, and as most of you on this call know, it's not unusual for the bigger promotional products distributors to also have uniform programs because they do specialize in branded apparel. So lots of crossover also in how they go to market. So let's just talk a little bit about the uniform industry when we talk about e-commerce 2.0. I mean, when you break it down to its simplest form, what are the three major requirements in the uniform industry? One is product personalization, the ability to add a logo or embroidery to a product. Obviously, if a user logs into a specific account, you only want to display their approved logos to that specific account or within that profile. The other one is account profiles and catalogs, that when a specific account logs in, they're getting their specific uniform program based upon login. And then three is customer specific stores. Very similar to the promotional products category. It's not unusual for a uniform distributor who has an exclusive relationship with a healthcare system to stand up a branded store specifically for that healthcare system, for them to get their specific programs. And then even maybe only stand up specific catalogs based upon the login of the specific user. A doctor may receive a different catalog than a nurse, things of that nature. Or they may have also just a general store for branded merchandise like mugs. So those are the three main categories of requirements. And I would say most companies in this category are doing their best in e-commerce 1.0 to accomplish those requirements. But we're going to get into what 2.0 looks like and where things are moving. So what has changed is probably the big question. And I think a couple things have changed. There's no explanation needed on this slide, right? Amazon has changed the world. The B2B customer now wants a B2C customer experience. They want to be able to find things quickly. They want a personalized experience, and they want products that are curated and relevant to them. I think the other thing that's changed, I don't know if anybody's aware of it, but we're coming out of a pandemic for about 12 to 18 months, but that's radically also accelerated digital commerce. So when you take a look at like the feeding frenzy in digital commerce, is that 62% of companies report an increase in e-commerce sales of at least 25% in the last year. So we're talking some big changes in B2B buyer shift. And the world has changed, right? So when you take a look at the stats, is that 70% of B2B buyers say that they only want to buy from a website that is convenient and basically how they're going to source their business products and services. But probably the bigger stat is it's now twice as likely that a company with an outstanding digital experience will be selected as a supplier. This stat is really, really relevant to the uniform industry because uniform companies are vying for market share. They're going out and pitching programs to major employers. And major employers, one of the big criteria that they check off is how easy is it for our customers, or our employees, our doctors, our nurses, our parents, if it's a school uniform program, how easy is it for them to go online, find the products they need and order it? So having a great digital experience is probably the number one driver of sales revenue these days. But from what we've seen in doing an audit of the uniform industry, I would not say that the uniform industry is up to speed on the latest and greatest in technology to deliver that excellent experience. And some of that is also shown up in other stats, which is 72 to 86% of B2B e-commerce implementations are replatforming. So the uniform industry, like many, many other industries, is probably in a game of catch up right now because most companies are moving off of their legacy platforms and updating their technology, which will help us get to, to basically get into e-commerce 2.0.
And
so what, oh,
Tom,
sorry, go ahead there.
Actually, a quick comment to add with that is a stat I saw from Microsoft literally the other day that 65% of customers have cut ties with providers due to a poor customer experience. And if anything, that puts the prioritization on customer experience again. So
Absolutely.
just another data point to add to that conversation.
And again, super important in this industry where programs are being run online or should be run online efficiently. So, what else has changed? We talk about this replatforming craze and why companies are looking to shift to e-commerce 2.0. Well, one, basically the technology has changed over the last 10 years since this category, the uniform category, started to move online. So product personalization, many companies are still running homegrown software. That software doesn't necessarily scale very, very well. And the product virtualization or visualization isn't offered. There is no proof that's offered in that buying journey. What that leads to is long turnaround in the sales cycle. So it's not unusual to upload a logo, not be able to get a virtual proof, and 5 days later, maybe you get something sent to your inbox in your email with an art file that has been put together by a human being rather than by technology. And then the other two big things are the account specific catalogs. Technology stacks 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, really had a hard time managing multiple catalogs. And why is that? Well, because e-commerce, the birth of e-commerce really came out of the B2C world where it was typically one catalog to one store. But the reality is in this category, in the uniform industry, many catalogs based upon account or profile are a major requirement. And then customer specific stores are also a major requirement as well. And that B2C e-commerce platform was never meant to be running multiple stores either. And you can fill in a number of names that we're not here to like trash other e-commerce platforms, but that is the history of e-commerce platforms to date. And so how is all of that solved? Lots of expensive customizations and code, typically. Or maybe buying a very, very expensive platform that still costs a lot of money and needed a lot of customizations and code. There hasn't been a really simple solve for these problems in the market. So what does e-commerce 2.0 look like? We'll get into this a little bit. And I'm going to break it down by the different categories that we talked about in the requirements. So, we talked about the technology has changed. So again, if we go back to product personalization, some of the headlines in 1.0 are homegrown software that doesn't scale, no visual proof, long sales cycle and turnaround time. And that is affecting the customer experience. And you can take a look, you can go out and go to any of the major uniform providers. I did not put their logos on these screen captures, but this is an example of a uniform. This is a scrub. And if you take a look at how the personalization arrives at, you can choose your font style, your thread color, you can type in your embroidery template, and you can choose an X on a product where you want to put that. So I put in Dr. Tom here, and that's all I get. So I'm assuming in this journey, there's an art team somewhere on the back end who grabs that logo and puts it on a uniform and maybe emails it to the buyer to actually before the buyer purchases, or maybe the buyer does just get that product, but when they get that product, they haven't seen a virtual proof of it, so they're not happy. More than likely, they can't return it because it's customized, but does that mean that they're going to come back if they didn't like the quality and what they bought? It's a poor customer experience. Another example, this is another major provider of uniforms in the market. Again, like choose your product, and you're on the PDP page, and you can, when you hit customize, it says your logo will preview here. I have my logo there. I hit my logo and I don't get to see a preview. I just get to see a picture of my logo. And even if you could preview it, you would only see it, what it would look like on that little portion of the product, not on the entire product. So what does 2.0 look like? And this is from a demo site that we put together, but you're on the PDP page. You can quickly hit the personalize button. It renders the product again. You can have live colorization rendering where you have one asset, but you can choose different colors on that asset. So it's a very light platform. You can choose from your logo library, and you can quickly see what your logo looks like, and you can apply it. And again, this is where they're seeing a real-time virtual proof, and they can zoom in on that proof. And there's all kinds of different features that can be shown in this particular instance. But the idea is the shopper is in charge. They can add their logo. And in this case, it's actually being rendered as an embroidery file. So they're actually seeing what the real-time embroidery file looks like. And then they can hit purchase and they can buy the actual product. So what does e-commerce 2.0 look like? Well, when it comes to product personalization, it addresses 5 major issues in this category. One is the shopper experience. So I just showed a demo store, but that user interface can be customized to meet the PDP page and the specs of any specific brand. 2, dynamic rendering. The big takeaway here is live visualization. The customer is actually seeing a proof of what they're buying before they hit the buy button. So you don't have to worry about any poor customer experiences. 3, enabling teams within the uniform manufacturer distributor to manage all of this. So the ability to upload products, manage the rules on the product, where that logo can go. Is it right chest, left chest? Can it be resized? Manage the type of file it is. Is it a flat file or is it an embroidery file? There's different applications of logos. Have that integrate into the e-commerce platform, so immediately that file is being sent all the way back into the e-commerce platform for a transaction. Because again, it doesn't need to go to an art team who then needs to email it back to the buyer before they hit the purchase button. And then finally, an output file. And this is probably one of the bigger takeaways too, is because that embroidery file is being rendered real time, it doesn't need to be sent to a third party to be created. An output file can be sent to the production team. And now the sales cycle has gone from 5 days and lots of back-end management that's not automated to 5 minutes. And the production team is getting the production file with the XY coordinates on the garment, and they're able to pick that garment, provide the customization, and drop it in the mail that day, which is much more of an Amazon experience in the category. So what does e-commerce 2.0 look like when it comes to the product personalization requirement? One, significantly improved customer experience, both from like the virtual proof, but also the fact that what they're actually seeing is what's going to arrive in the mail, and it's going to arrive in the mail in a couple days rather than having to go through a process of sharing art files back and forth for 5 days. It's automation of the embroidery file creation, and obviously the other things that are normal, like being able to see the logos only specifically by the account that you log in as. But on the operational side, there's lots of other things that are happening in e-commerce 2.0. Smaller agile teams, a lower total cost of ownership of running product personalization, and then scale. One of the things that we didn't talk about, but the ability to do this at scale. So if you create a template for a product or a category, you can reuse that same template for product customization across multiple stores. Because what's unique about this industry is that you're selling one product, but you're selling it 50 different ways on 50 different websites. So to take a template and not have to repeat that process 50 different times adds a lot of scale to internal teams. Now we're going to get into programs and catalogs, which are, basically requirements 2 and 3. And we'll just do a quick review again. So e-commerce 1.0, we talked about, what are some of the things that are requirements that have been accomplished, but maybe aren't at 2.0 standard. One, the technology stack is typically outdated. Typically built on a B2C e-commerce platform framework. So monolithic technology stack that lacks flexibility. Difficulties in creating new stores and improving user experience. Lots of expensive custom code. Because the data model typically means that to add a new catalog and add a new site, you're typically replicating data. So you have heavy IT teams and heavy investment in technology, slow speed to market, and big budgets. And so where are we moving as we look at e-commerce 2.0? And I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pull up an example of this quickly. You can all bear with me a moment here. I'm going to show, this is an example of a live program. So this is Tommy Hilfiger, school uniforms by Tommy Hilfiger. And this may be a different example than what some of the people who are attending the webinar are thinking, but it's a very similar use case. And the reason I'm showing this is because the functionality that we're about to talk about isn't behind a login. So Tommy Hilfiger manages school uniform programs, no different than a traditional B2B uniform program. The only difference is that they work with schools to create the program, but the parents actually buy. So it's not a B2B uniform program, it's a B2B2C uniform program. And Tommy Hilfiger is a national company. They have over 600 schools that they manage uniform programs and specs for. And so here's an example of what e-commerce 2.0 looks like for them. And again, in a B2B world, some of this would be behind a login, but because this is a B2B2C model, it's not. The shopper can quickly find their school on search. They can quickly go to their grade level. They can choose their gender. They can choose their program, and they can quickly shop for this school. And here you can see there on a specific school landing page, and this is that specific school catalog. And again, you have the obvious filtering, by category, size range, type, etc. But this platform, a couple things to take away is how quickly the pages load and the page speed versus if you do an audit of other platforms in this industry and other uniform providers in this industry. You can see some of the compliance requirements that are built right into the shopping experience. And again, like we can quickly filter and we can go to a different school and we can choose the grade. We can choose the gender. In this case, they aren't gender specific, daily program. And again, now we're getting a completely different catalog that is specific to the programs and specs of this particular school, and they're getting their own shopping experience. And the other thing that's unique about how they use this program is when they go to schools and meet with administrators, they're setting up the program and they're actually building the program in an Excel spreadsheet. And when they get back to the office, they're just uploading a CSV file into the e-commerce platform, and they're publishing, basically handing it to the ops department, not the IT department, the operations department. And within 2 days, they are publishing a brand new catalog on this site. So they're running 600 different catalogs on one site. Prior to this, when they were living in the e-commerce 1.0 environment, this process took 90 days. Today, it takes 2 days, and they don't need a heavy IT team in order to manage all of this. So great example of where we are at when it comes to e-commerce 2.0 in the uniform category. Another great example is Staples promotional products. And again, this is a similar category, but this is a company that works with the Fortune 500 and manages all of their branded merchandise, including apparel and uniforms. And their go-to-market strategy is they stand up a unique customer store for each customer. And let's just say, for example, that the customer is Microsoft. Microsoft would have its own branded store, and Microsoft employees and Microsoft channel partners could log in. And based upon their profile, they would get their own catalog with their own unique items that could be customized. And if they're an employee, they may even get a voucher, very similar to the uniform category where they get a voucher to buy items. And again, here, this is a company that went from being on 3 homegrown platforms, which is how they started their 1.0 journey, to moving all of them to one platform, Znode, doing the product customization on Artify and using templates across multiple sites for managing products and categories in the customization. And now they're running hundreds of sites on one single platform. So great customer experience, getting to market much, much faster, and being able to lower their total cost of ownership and their investment in how they're managing e-commerce. And so how are they doing that when we talk about e-commerce 2.0? Well, it's really choosing flexible technology that mirrors the needs of the uniform industry. So the ability to easily manage programs, specifications, and more. The way that we see that platforms should be built in order to enable this is this architecture that you see on the right, which is the ability to easily, out of a central product information system, manage unlimited numbers of catalogs. And those catalogs are nothing more than a virtual replication of what's in the PIM. So you're not replicating data to create a catalog. It's a virtual replication. Out of the administration console, our customers can create unlimited numbers of stores, and those catalogs can be applied in a one-to-many or a many-to-one fashion. So in Tommy Hilfiger, they have one store with 600 catalogs. With Staples, they have hundreds of stores and hundreds of catalogs. So there's different ways that this data structure can allow for the flexibility that's needed in the uniform category. And at a store level, everything is easily customized. So things like themes and the ability to quickly create a branded site, catalogs, SKU by purchasing profile, programs, pricing, etc., can all be applied at a specific store level. And then also the ability to manage programs, specifications, and more in other ways. So again, product information is easily managed within the PIM, including attributes like decoration. Catalogs can be created for specific customers. You can serve multiple segments, multiple job functions, profiles, multiple programs, and then again, account-specific e-stores. Also, from a customer experience standpoint, is enabling customers to self-serve. And this varies a little bit within the uniform industry, depending upon how Uniform Manufacturers and Distributors would like to manage this, but the ability to have the customer log in, self-serve what they buy. If there is an approval workflow process that can be performed within the platform, as well as returns if those are allowed. Different policies exist based upon customization. But also having the customer service reps and inside sales reps at the manufacturers and distributors be able to easily manage e-commerce out of one back-end administration console. So the idea to be able to filter by program or catalog or store, even order on behalf of and take phone orders and order on behalf of customers, or even to impersonate a customer while they're in a live session on the web and help them through that product customization journey or their shopping journey, but not needing to manage, I guess, to log in through multiple admins in order to make this happen. So a lot more flexibility to manage programs just based upon contemporary technology that has changed over the last couple of years. And then finally is an API first architecture, which means that unlimited user experiences can be created because the responsive storefront or the sales app or any other sort of user experience is simply calling APIs. And so it's much easier to create a unique branded store, spin up that store without having to use traditional monolithic means of creating a store. So the big takeaway is that stores and programs can be spun up in days, not weeks or months. So if we kind of do a quick summary of e-commerce 2.0, it's the ability to create unlimited catalogs, and those catalogs can be applied at an individual user level, an account or a customer specific level, or even a profile specific level based upon how programs are set up. Also customer specific stores. So the ability to create unlimited customer specific stores. Each store can have its own unique rules or entities like pricing, catalogs, etc. And what this really does is it allows for speed to market, right? That was one of the headlines here, is how do you increase the sales cycle? You have to be able to stand up a demo store quickly. You have to be able to show how great of a customer experience you can provide. And you have to be able to do it in days, not weeks, not months. And then on the administration side, giving a breather to the IT team. No more replicating data, no more big budgets, but having smaller agile teams that are responsive and helping the business grow. And with that, we really try to do this TED Talk style and get it done in 20 to 30 minutes, but we can take any questions at this time.
Hey, that was great, Tom. So I believe that the individual, I'm going to switch this back to a gallery view for all of us. I believe the gentleman left, but he had put in the chat a little earlier, saying, wow, this is like so comprehensive, does he need a consultant, to help them, implement it all,
Sure.
think through it all, right? This is complicated stuff for an organization to migrate to.
Right. Well, yes and no. I mean, there's a couple different ways to consider that. Some of it certainly depends upon how well organized the product information is in their existing systems. And you certainly have to have some sort of transition plan because you can't just turn these platforms on and go. Znode, though, our business model is we build software that serves industries like the uniform industry and the promotional products industry. And then we have specific partners that we work with that do the actual implementation. And so those are the consultants that really gather the requirements, really work with the leadership teams, the technology teams, the marketing teams at the uniform manufacturers and distributors to implement the product and put together their digital transformation roadmap. We also, within Artify and Znode, do have expert consultants that work side by side with our implementation partners that understand how to help build these programs, who will also do some high-level consulting as well. And then even more specific on Artify, because there's a lot of nuances in product customization. Ironically, even though product customization is a bolt-on to e-commerce in most cases, it's very complex. And so you do need to have people there who've done it before who know what they're doing.
So Tom and Derek, you'll have to follow up with that guy, because I told him you mostly had the consultants in-house. to do it, but that makes sense that it's a combination, right?
Right.
In
Right.
certain instances, you may need people that are familiar with the ERP on the other end,
Right.
and and can work through all of that. That because it can't be that Amla Commerce is experts at both Oracle and Microsoft enterprise level stuff. So
Right. No, I mean, we expose the APIs from our platforms to connect, but ultimately you do have to have a systems integrator and
yeah,
a digital agency to help with integrating, working with the customer. Unless the customer has a large internal IT team, we can certainly work with them and onboard them and train them, but somebody does have to do some of the work, absolutely, to implement the products.
Yeah.
So, a lot of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Derek.
No, I was just going to add on to that, I mean, as Tom said, Zeno gets you 80% there. That's really what we focus on, is getting you 80% of where you need to be. And then the 20% is relying on an implementation partner or your internal staff to make that connection into an ERP, a CRM, what have you, whatever technology stack you're utilizing. But associated with that, I mean, some of our partners even have specialties, as Tom mentioned, the promotional market space. We have partners that specialize in specific industries. And in this case, we may have a partner that specifically focuses on the uniform market.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So, I'm gonna play play the simpleton. So many uniform companies, might listen to a presentation like this or watch the recording and say, my customers don't want this fancy stuff. It's, they just want something. They want their employee to log on, buy those 3 items and log off, and they don't want them spending time on the website. They need something simple. Yet that same company is looking around because they have 15% of their accounts that want something super complicated because they have 5,000 employees and they need to have 10 regional office specifications and be able to configure so that when Sally in Atlanta logs in, Sally sees exactly what she's supposed to order, as opposed to Bob in Toledo sees what Bob's supposed to order. And so how does a uniform company deal with wanting the bulk of their stuff to be simple, but then be able to handle all these outliers? And then one other note, and I'll let you reply. You told me a war story, Tom, about a company that their current platform had them building literally like 240 individual stores just to be able to manage that complexity of that large program example I was given, right?
Right.
So that's what made me think of that question, by the way.
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, what it really comes down to is the ambition of the uniform manufacturer supplier. If you want to go after big business, you're going to have complexities in your data model, right? Like you just mentioned, you're going to have 10 different locations and they're going to have different specifications. And then you're going to break it down even by job function at location with specifications, right? And so the example that you're talking about is one of the major uniform suppliers. And without getting too deep into it, the issue that they face is that they were on an older platform living in e-commerce 1.0. And what they did is they had a specific customer and they were standing up over 200 stores for that one customer. And my question then was, well, why didn't you have one customer store with 200 different catalogs, and based upon the profile, you could serve, or the user, you could serve up the right catalog? And they said, we didn't have the flexibility at the time in the platform. So now they're managing 200 different data sets, right? Because they have to create a unique catalog for each different store. So they're replicating data in their platform. And they have a really high IT budget to manage all of that stuff. And, I'm sure they built efficiencies over the years. But when you look at like, how do you win business nowadays? You have to be able to go in and demo a great experience. You probably want to stand up a POC for your customer, and you want to be able to get to market fast to have a great customer experience. The technology is simply an enabler. So when we talk about
what's a POC? What's a POC?
Proof of concept. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sorry.
I thought it was more technical. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, but it comes down to the ambition of the company, and what we shared with you actually isn't complex. It's reducing complexity.
Yeah.
it's going from big budgets and big teams and old technology to fast modern technology and smaller teams and agile teams. And if you say, look, we're even going to maintain the current status of our IT teams, well, they should be able to do 50% more in helping support sales and marketing win new programs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if we hit those value points that Artify delivers and Znode delivers, again, it went from 2 to 5 days to 2 to 5 minutes with the product customization delivery and real-time showcase there. And with Znode, the flexibility is obviously you can scale it accordingly. I mean, if you're serving those small mom and pop uniform manufacturers, and then you have these select few accounts that are really enterprise level accounts, you can scale the functionality by store per se, or even by account, as Tom mentioned.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's more where, Derek, I thought the answer would go, which is that I was teeing it up for you to say, well, you can have, 500 simple stores running in there, and then 10 super complex ones, and manage them all from the one location, and just rinse and repeat on the simple ones. But then you've got the room to build out that one that required, 200 different catalogs, as you call them in the Znode world, right?
Right.
A catalog, really, you just mean a spec. You mean a
Yeah.
set of products for a set of employees. Yeah, cool.
And interestingly enough, the effort to manage the bigger program is really not much different than managing the smaller program in that case.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. You still have to go in and organize the data, and whether you're organizing that for 3 buyers or 3,000 buyers, it's kind of,
Right.
Is that your point?
That, and just, yes, but keeping it simple, right?
Yeah.
Keeping it simple for regardless of the buyer type. Yeah.
Does anyone have other questions? You can toss them in the chat. If there's other questions.
Rick, maybe from a housekeeping standpoint, just reminding everybody that you're going to have this video housed on the NAUMD website. We're also going to have the presentation and the video housed on znode.com. And we might actually have it at artify.com too, if anybody would like to, artifylabs.com as well. So
beautiful. Yes, we really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with us today about it, and about the 2.0, or who knows, some people might even be at 4.0, but certainly your platform, after you've gotten some, sea legs in the online world, your platforms are something to look at for sure. And with that, I thank you, gentlemen, for the talk today.
thank you, Rick. We appreciate it. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you.